Ethical Perspectives on the News is produced by the Interreligious Council of Lynn County, which is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KCRG TV 9.
Good morning, and welcome to this edition of Ethical Perspectives on the News. I'm Lynda Waddington, a columnist at the Gazette and your moderator today. We're going to be discussing what happens to the men and women serving in our armed forces when their call of duty is ended. As many of you are aware, this topic has been in the headlines for less than stellar reasons in the recent days. Some of these include the scandals with the VA hospitals, and longer-term problems of physical and behavioral health, homelessness, and even suicide. Vietnam veterans, a group that is close to my heart since I lost a brother serving in the Vietnam conflict, are just now reporting problems that stem from their service 40 or more years ago. Veterans of more recent conflicts, such as our producer today, Joe Stutler, continue to battle federal red tape in accessing the benefits that they have earned. But the truth is, the treatment of our veterans isn't a new debate. In the 1780s, Congress fled then capital Philadelphia to avoid the Continental Army veterans who were seeking what they had been promised. In 1932, roughly 17,000 World War I veterans marched on Washington, D.C., also demanding the benefits they had been promised. And today I'm joined by three guests who I believe will help provide you a better picture of the plight of our nation's veterans. I have today Don Tyne. Don Tyne is a retired Army veteran who served in Desert Storm. He's also the director of Lynn County Department of Veterans Affairs. Thanks for being here, Don.
Thank you.
To his left is Denine Rushing, a veterans advocate at the Willis Dady Emergency Shelter, which is here in Cedar Rapids. And on my far left is Dennis Conaway. Dennis is a Vietnam veteran and founder of the Iowa Veterans Welcome Center, also located in Cedar Rapids off the 2nd Avenue Bridge. And I guess what I would like to start with today is I was wondering if Dennis, you and Don, you as well as veterans, could tell us a little bit about your experience in coming home.
My experience of coming home, I come home in 1968, March, and it was cold, and I come home alone. I come home on a kind of an emergency leave to get home early. There was no welcome committee. People weren't nice to us. It was just like another guy getting off the airplane or the bus. It was no drums, nothing to make you feel good.
Well, I got out of the Army, the active Army initially in 1975, and I had enrolled in Kirkwood Community College, and I was actually told by the staff not to pronounce that I am a veteran because there might be some people that could be hostile toward me.
So both of you kind of had apprehensive welcome parties when you returned to our nation.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked. I didn't serve in combat. I served in Germany and Florida, but I was kind of taken back. I was 22 years old. I was wondering, what's the big deal? I just got out of the service, but yeah, that was quite a shock to be told that at Kirkwood Community College. And now Kirkwood has a veterans lounge, and they go all out to make sure the veterans are taken care of.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, we just recently celebrated Memorial Day. It's a big pomp and circumstance devoted to our nation's veterans, and in my opinion, very deservedly so. But does that help what's actually going on with veterans to have those types of ceremony, or does it just kind of glaze over the problems that we're seeing?
I think it helps. It doesn't provide a solution. I had the opportunity to be on WMT for 2 hours on Memorial Day, and I had the opportunity to read people that were killed in Vietnam, their names in Vietnam, Desert Storm, and Iraq and Afghanistan. And I actually got some phone calls this morning from the community thanking me. So I think it helps, but it doesn't provide a solution.
I think that the conflicts are all a little different. I think Vietnam's a little different than the other people. I'm a combat veteran. I was a dog handler. I walked point for a year. I've seen lots of combat. I'm an experienced combat soldier, and I think there's a lot of difference in that. It takes 10 guys to keep one of us people up front, but that doesn't mean that they still don't absorb some of the feelings and things that happen in country and go through some of the pains and aches we went through. I think my era guys coming back from Vietnam, it's been 47 years. I never talked about it. I never discussed it with anybody. I went to Kirkwood a few years before Don did, and it was hardly even mentioned that I was a veteran. So it's I think every conflict we've had treats it a little differently, and I think that young men and women that are coming home today are going to have far more problems and going to need a lot more help with jobs, help with housing, lots of things that are just doesn't fall on to you anymore. Some things are getting harder and harder to come by.
And Denine, I know you are like me. You're not a veteran, but you know you didn't wear the boots, but you support those who have. So what you're hearing between these two gentlemen, is that pretty much what you're hearing dealing with veterans every day?
Yes, that's definitely what we see on the day-to-day and working with veterans through the SSVF program and also over at the Willis Dady Shelter. You know, just having services available for veterans to get job training, like the CWT program, which is a compensated work therapy program that has really helped a lot of veterans to get back into the work field, and other agencies and services that are set in place to be of assistance.
You know, we have read a lot about the VA hospitals and the scandal or potential scandal that has happened there. But that is not our Iowa City facility, is that correct?
And absolutely. We have one of the best VA hospitals through Iowa City VA, plus our community-based outpatient clinic. My interaction with those professionals has been nothing but stellar and outstanding. Granted, we make mistakes, and I will tell veterans that myself. I will make a mistake, but I'll own up to it if I do. But nothing as criminal as what we're seeing in the national news. I don't know about Dennis.
I'm a 2010 person. That's when I left employment of the real world, and I figured I'd pick up my Vietnam veterans benefits, and I have no complaints with things that have happened to me. They found right away that I had squamous cell cancer in my throat, and they said it was Agent Orange from Vietnam. They got right on it. They took right care of it. But I'm still having compensation problems. I don't get any response from anything much past. My doctors, my surgeons are superb, but higher up, they seem to keep the system locked up and not moving very fast.
You know, I get that that impression as well. As we were preparing for this show, actually about 30 minutes ago, our producer Joe Stutler was called on his cell phone by his doctor, checking in on him to making sure he was doing okay. So I think once you actually get to the point where you're receiving those benefits, it's really working for the veterans. But I think one of these larger criticisms is how long it takes to get through the red tape. To get to what you need. Are we seeing improvements in that area here? Or do you think that's a fair criticism?
We have an active duty Iraqi vet that's stationed with us on the island down here in our Veterans Center, and he called today about getting not a cortisone shot, but an antiseptic shot that he needs for his back and for injury he's attained there. They told him maybe they could see him in August. I told him to go to the emergency room down there and they will get you in. They still have a lot of ease with telling you maybe it'll be a month, maybe 3 months down the road, then just some things that's not acceptable.
And even before that, though, isn't it, Don, just trying to get the paperwork, trying to get things filed and get things rolling?
Well, it's not where it should be, but it has improved. They have now the fully developed claim process. Before 2013, it wasn't uncommon for a service compensation claim to take 18 months. Now they have the computer systems, or at least talking to each other, and it's down to 3 to 6 months, which isn't the right answer, but it's heading in the right direction. But I understand what Dennis is saying, because I too, we represent boots on the ground, and we can only push so hard, and sometimes we do have veterans that are waiting, and we're frustrated too. We're making the phone calls, we're sending the emails, and we only can push so hard. So
Denine, you work at an emergency shelter. So can you kind of, I know you can't tell us specifics about the people who come and need your assistance, but can you give us an overview about maybe what some of them have already been through before they get to you?
Yeah, a lot of the clients that we work with, the veteran clients that come to the shelter, you know, some of them have been dealing with chronic homelessness, also a lot of issues with PTSD and mental health issues. And so like I mentioned before, with the SSVF program, which some of you may know of as Operation Home, what we do is we assist homeless veterans into finding permanent housing, or veterans on the verge of homelessness and getting them into, or helping them to maintain the housing that they're already in. And so I do case management for that particular program. And so we stick with the clients normally for 90 days. And so we address all those barriers. You know, the clients that are dealing with substance abuse, that are dealing with PTSD, and we definitely point them in the right direction of what services that they can obtain to get assistance for that. But a lot of times that's what we see. Unfortunately, we do see clients that are chronically homeless.
And Dawn, I know you're involved with another group that works with homeless and near homeless veterans, the Stand Down, Operation Stand Down, or 5 Seasons Stand Down?
well, we have 2 basic programs. What Denine was talking about, that's a significant tool that we use. In fact, we have their staff come to our office twice a week to interview veterans. But we have a stand down, which is a resource fair that's held in September. It has approximately 64 vendors, everything from housing to employment to health care to legal assistance plus classes, where it's a one-stop shop. And we had approximately 104 veterans show up for that last year. This is our 9th year. And then our other program is we work with Willis Dady and the other agencies that have helped the homeless over the year, and it's called the Sleep Out. And we bring them in, they show the community what they do to help with the homeless, and then with that process it's a fundraiser, and all the dollars go back to the shelters. This started when we had a veteran who had been awarded the Purple Heart that was homeless. They came into our office, and I was then on the Willis Dady board, and I knew how they were struggling financially, but Willis Dady came in, really took care of this guy, helped him locate his family, got him off the street, and then that's how the Sleep Out started.
Is homelessness in our area, is that probably one of the biggest concerns that we have as far as our veterans population?
Well, I think it's one of the biggest concerns. The other is like what Dennis was referring to, is getting the federal government to process the compensation paperwork and get it rolling, because some of these people are homeless because of combat injuries and they can't work. And compensation is a federally funded program that provides them an income and rates their disability until they can either find gainful employment or help them until they're healthy enough to progress.
About how long of a time frame? Give me a ballpark. On average, how long does it take for those to process?
Well, probably 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
And that's the hard part. And that's why, like Denine and what Dennis was talking about, but what Willis Dady does and the SSVF program, that's what's so important, is while they're waiting for that process, the SSVF program can step in, help them get housing, help them pay for 5 months, up to 5 months rent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to steal your thunder there.
Normally up to 90 days, but yeah, it can go further than that if the client is still in need. But yes, that's accurate.
And these are people who have just returned home, have just been discharged, have just returned home, correct? Generally?
Some of them.
Yeah.
I've got Vietnam veterans that are homeless, and I've got new veterans that are in the process of being foreclosed on. And then my thought of it, I would like to have interjected, was in the last 5 years, I was amazed at how many homeless people I've seen and veterans. Today, I'm amazed at how many people I see that may even work 40 hours or more a week and are homeless. They just can't get the facilities to make a first mortgage, and they live in their cars, they sleep at Walmart. It's pretty sad.
That's a good point that Dennis made. Is a lot of people picture homeless as totally not working, but I tell corporations, you don't know it, but you've got people on your staff that are homeless that because you pay such a small wage, they can't pay their rent, they can't pay their utilities, they have one medical emergency or one serious setback and they're out on the street.
But if you have a combat veteran, though, that's returning home perhaps with injuries, and they need to wait on a processing, 3 to 6 months, you said, where are they getting like medical care? I mean, does that kick in automatically, or are they waiting on that as well?
Well, from my experience, that kicks in pretty quickly.
Okay.
And our office can help with rent and utilities up to 3 months, but Denine's program really helps out for an extended period, and that helps out even more. But the other thing is the dignity that they lose. I mean, here they are in combat injury, and they're having to come for food, they're having to come for rent, and they're proud people, as Dennis would probably state. They don't want to really ask for help. As far as Vietnam veterans are concerned, on a national average, they're more successful than those that never served. But a lot of the post-traumatic stress disorder cases I see are people that come out of retirement, they're sitting at home, they're relaxing, and all of a sudden flashbacks of Vietnam start coming again. And actually work had been a therapy for them. And so I've had some PTSD cases that way.
And the system that we have right now, just go down the row here, is it working for our veterans, yes or no?
You know, you still got to weigh into the fact that there's homeless people, there's people with jobs that are homeless, and there's also groups of people, and maybe to say ethnical people is not necessarily a fair thing to say, but there's still people too proud to come forward. I don't need that. I'll eat cat food. There's people live underneath the bridge, and they just aren't going to ask anybody for help. And I see that this trend's going to just pick up. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Job market's kind of poor. We had General Mills come in, and they did a hiring session down at our center, and they was looking to hire 50 vets, and they didn't get all 50 of them. So there's things out there happening, and sometimes just getting the word around isn't the easiest thing. There's no one local place you can go. People come to our office, people go to Don's office, they go to their centers and that, but if you could have a bulletin board up full of stuff. They don't look at it. Getting the word out and how is really a big thing. You know, you teach a kid that the fire's hot by having them around it, but you can't get older people that are already set in their ways to want to learn. They need to go back to school. They need to get a new education. There's still time and hope left for them. And that's our goal at our center. Is we're trying to help all veterans, and people got to realize there's as many young ladies coming home now as there are young men. We're here to help them. We're here to help their families. But we've got to keep beating the woodwork and trying to get these people to surface. It's a tough thing to do. There's some nice things happening today, but you got to find them to get them to them.
Well, let's talk about that then. What are the resources in our community beyond what we've already discussed, or adding to that?
Another resource that I've seen that has been helpful for some of the veterans, especially the veterans that may come to the shelter that are chronically homeless, is the VASH program. And the VASH program is pretty much like leased housing specifically for veterans. And so they can get veterans into an apartment, and then they can assist them with rental assistance for up to 1 year. And I've seen that be something that was helpful for veterans. And then also something that Dennis touched on is that a lot of times veterans are sometimes, not as comfortable, reaching out to get the assistance that's available. And so, us working really hard to get the word out is something I think that all of our different agencies that we really put a lot of effort into doing. Having people out there just getting the word out, and letting the veterans know that, it's okay if you need help. That's what these programs are in place for.
We have a real good community here in Lynn County that really does support veterans. We have the SSVF program. We have the outreach center across from the First Avenue Hy-Vee that is geared and staffed to help the homeless, nearly homeless. We have the community-based outpatient clinic that is fully staffed with social workers and psychiatrists and doctors and pharmacists. And we have the Welcome Center that just opened up that Dennis is a part of. And of course, Lynn County Veteran Affairs, the county government is there helping with rent, utilities, and we all are certified, our staff is, to help them file for their compensation and pension benefits. So we have a well-rounded program, but a lot of it's getting the word out. And like Dennis alluded to, there are some people that just don't want to have the help. And I think that happens with every social service agency, though.
When it's a matter of pride, and we know that many of our men and women who have served are very proud of who they are and taking care of themselves, how do you approach that with them? And is there something, if there's someone out there and they know of someone who could use this help and that person's just being too proud, what can you say to that person?
What I usually say is they earned it. And I tell them, you served your country, you earned it. This is something that's here for you. It's not a handout. It's something you already earned. You've already put your time in. You already served your country. That's how I approach it.
I had a lot of trouble coming back to the VA because I didn't come until 2010 because I've always had successful jobs. I've always been able to be busy. I've always been able to take care of myself. I've always had good health insurance. If I needed a second opinion, I could go to the Mayo Clinic to do that. And not everybody can do that. And it's hard to get them to come and do that. So our coffee pot's always on. We got pool tables. We got banks of computers that the guys can get on. They could look up help jobs. We got people up there to instruct them, to show them how they can look and where to look. We ask all local companies to send us postings. If they got somebody, send them postings with us, hire a vet. And we just try to get as much information out as we can, and in order to do that, you got to have information to come in to send it back out. So we beat the streets and try to do what we can, and we're a year old now, and it's a learning experience, and we learn from like the resource center and things that are up in Dubuque that are pretty successful, and they've had some years up on us. And like I said, we would like to get to a point where we have our own shelter to put people up in, and we don't have to depend on somebody else. And it all takes time, money, and it takes a lot of help, a lot of good help. And we have a lot of good help down at our centers. Don comes by, and they send stuff over. They send people by. We get some of the local building trades send stuff, bring stuff. They helped us make our moves when we move. There's people out there in this community are well capable of giving you a hand. Sometimes you just got to ask. And we're getting to where we ask pretty easy now, and we're getting a lot of good responses.
I think one of the things that's been in the news lately, our Congressman Bruce Braley, I believe he sent out a press release saying that his understanding were some military men and women were getting discharged early so that the government could save on money on benefits. I don't know if any of you heard this or have read this? I was just curious, is that something you're hearing?
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I heard that. In fact, I was with Bruce Brayling out at Oakland Road the other day when we were talking about that, and they'll discharge you 4 or 5 days early so that you don't have your compensated bonus you've got coming, and it saves them a lot of money.
You know, I actually spoke with a veteran at a service center here in town who told me basically the same story, that he was pushed out of the Marine Corps and now is not receiving his benefits.
I think the biggest thing, and I'm sure Don does too, with the new vet today, I see so many of them have been combat people, combat veterans, and they want to stay. It's a good job. Well, they don't. We're not at war anywhere. We don't need infantrymen, and they want to ease these people out, and they don't want to go, and they're trying to fight hard. We need some systems also built in through some things that. We need to have other sources and other things for them people to do in the services besides being soldiers. Or they need to give them other training so that they could go on and do something else. If you're a combat infantryman, your training isn't much good on the outside because the mafia does all of its own work and they don't need one of you guys.
So, and on the flip side, we've also seen the government doing some very positive things. We've seen some bills, you know, to give preference
Absolutely.
to veteran employees. Do you see those things making a difference?
Well, I see, like what Dan says, as a community, yes, there's voc rehab where they can retrain veterans to find employment. Even if you were an infantry soldier, you were at least taught leadership skills, and you were taught how to fight in very stressful environments that you were not going to find here. And there's a lot of skills that they pick up that, yeah, we don't need anybody carrying an M16 around, but they picked up a lot of leadership skills. But vocational rehabilitation is another tool that we have that we refer to where they retrain people if they're not ready for college. They want to learn a different trade, they're assessed, and that's also available.
It's
Do you agree,
hard to,
Denine?
Yes, yeah, I definitely agree. I do see that there are, you know, the different services and resources that can help some of the veteran clients get back into the work field, like you mentioned with voc rehab and the CWT program, you know, have been really good supports in assisting the clients to get back out into the work field. That have been successful.
We only have about a minute left in our program. It goes by really fast once we start talking. But I would really love to each of you just to say, are we doing enough? You know, are we keeping the promises to the men and women who serve in our military? You know, do you think so, Don? Are we keeping the promises?
I think we can do more. I think we can spend more time in helping them find employment. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I do agree. I think there have been a lot of changes lately that have been helpful, but of course there's always more to do, and I think that's what we're all focusing on.
the more people, the more word gets around, the more it gets done. When a new situation comes up, they're pretty more adapt to have somebody come in and try to pick it up and pick the ball up and like with foreclosures and loans and get some of that stuff stopped. That's a big problem, and they're working, more people are working on it now than there were 5 years ago, a lot more.
Okay. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today and all of you for watching our show. The issues that surrounding our veterans are complex and nuanced, but I hope this conversation helped give you some insight and gives you some more thoughts on how you can help the people in your own life. If you want to continue this conversation, you can always join us on our Facebook page. Thank you so much and have a great day.